Hello, I'm Trevor.
And I'm Laura.
We have a deep passion for helping couples build strong, lasting relationships that truly thrive.
So we created Tools for Marriage.
Tangible, practical tools couples can start using right away.
Wherever you are in the world.
And wherever you are in your relationship.
We truly believe these tools can improve any marriage.
And maybe we put a few divorce lawyers out of business along the way. Hello and welcome to another episode of Tools for Marriage. Laura and I are thrilled about this particular episode because we have some dear friends with us. They are joining remotely from Washington, is it? Is that right?
Yep. Woodinville, Washington.
And so I want to read a little bit of bio and then we're going to dive into conversation with them. So Chris and Cheryl have been married for 43 years. They have 3 grown children, all married, and 2 grandchildren, a granddaughter who's 1 and a grandson who's 6 months. Very exciting. They recently moved back to Washington State after spending 8 years in California, and that's where we got to know them. And we're sort of tearful when they moved away, I'll admit it. So during their absence, all 3 children got married in a single year. So they've been delighted to participate and serve in several church pre-marriage and marriage classes. They trained for and led pre-marriage at Overlake Church using Les and Leslie Parrott's SYMBIS assessment and program. That's the one that Laura and I go through with couples, and we just love it. It's great. They led How We Love with Milan and Kay Yurkovich course at Mariners Church. Amazing. That's right. We had so many people telling us, like, you have to do this, you have to do this. And we're kind of like, all right. Then eventually we did it. And we're like, you have to do this, you have to do this. It's just, It's so great. They participated in marriage group with Laura and I at Mariners Church in Huntington Beach. And they participated in Re-Engage relationship program at Bridgeway Church, attended countless marriage seminars, over 43 years of marriage. And we're hoping to dip into that pool of knowledge as we speak with them today. And they read the Gottman weekly emails, which I want to make sure we touch on. They're just amazing. So welcome, Chris and Cheryl. We're just very, very thrilled to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. It's so great to see you two again. This is good.
Oh, yeah. It's great to catch up. There's a lot to catch up on. So, I want to start, if you're okay, with kind of rewinding to the beginning and kind of hearing a little bit about how you met, how you discovered one another, and moving into the marriage story for the two of you.
I get to tell that one because
sounds great.
I was attracted. She wasn't. So we met in college out in Bozeman, Montana, and we met in a dorm room stairwell. And I live this story every time I tell it because I was walking up, coming down the stairs. She was walking up the stairs. I was with a buddy of mine. She was with her boyfriend. And they had just gotten done playing racquetball. And she had these red baggy gym shorts and a yellow sweaty t-shirt on. And we met and we just engaged in some conversation. My buddy introduced us to these two. And when we walked away, I said to John, John, that is the kind of woman I want to marry. Oh, wow. And we were, I'm guessing, a sophomore in college. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know her or anything, but her spirit, her eyes, her laugh was just infectious, as you'll probably catch on here. That everything about her was just, oh my gosh, attracting. And it wasn't her actual looks, it was just her whole being that attracted me. And so that's how we met. And it was actually a couple years later that it took for her to actually kind of engage with me.
I had to get rid of a boyfriend. He had to get rid of a girlfriend.
Gotcha.
It was long distance, So.
A little time.
Anyway, I was smitten.
How long was it after this stairwell encounter that you eventually got engaged and married?
Well, we dated through college, and then we got to a point, I'd put in my 5 years or so. She had another year or so to go, and I figured, well, maybe this is it. I got in a car and had no place to go. You graduate and it's like, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And I got on I-90 from out in Montana, and I drove until I-90 ended. And that was Seattle.
He had said goodbye to me. He said this was it. Done, and we had a great time. It was done.
And I got to Seattle, and I lasted, I think it was about a week before I went, oh my God, I've messed up bad here. And I quickly re-engaged and said, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm confused. confused, young, and everything else. So I'm out in Seattle by myself, sleeping in my car to start off, and then sleeping on the deck for another month. Anyway, she finally graduated. It was, I can't remember how long, it was months. She graduated, and I convinced her to come out to Seattle. So she came out to Seattle, and she got a job out on Whidbey Island. So I couldn't see her. So she's on an island, I'm back. So that went on for months. And
Yeah. Did you live out on that island or did you
I,
commute to
I
it?
had a job out there. I had
I
a
see.
job at a camp out there. So
Right.
I,
Oh, okay. Okay.
so when that was over, we finally got together and we did what so many couples do nowadays is, well, heck, we should live together because it's less expensive, blah, blah, blah. We love each other. And that lasted about 3 months. And both of us knew we weren't strong Christians or anything, but we knew right from wrong and we knew that wasn't good. It wasn't good for us, but nobody challenged us on it. Our family didn't challenge us on it. We did have a friend kind of speak some truth into us lightly, but nobody said anything until we went to a service. It was a non-denominational service and we showed up and it happened to be somebody that was spoke very strongly, we'll put it that way. Not to us, it was to a group,
Yeah.
and
about marriage,
about marriage.
importance of
And
marriage.
I looked at her at that and I said, well, I think it's time. And so we went back home. I had one beer in the fridge, and it was the Pop Top. Pop the Top. That was our engagement ring.
It's the green tops,
Yeah,
with the hole in the middle. Where
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Pretty classy guy.
That was my engagement.
So we got engaged and we got married a week later. We found a church, found a pastor, and we jumped on and got married. We told my folks, don't come out, and they said, fine. We told Cheryl's parents, don't come out. Her dad would not allow it. Her dad jumped on a plane and came out. He slept on a couch in our unit because
Yeah.
so quick.
We had no furniture.
We had no furniture. We were young, broke, and we had a couple friends show up to stand up for us. And so there was 5 people at our wedding. And one of them bought a happy birthday cake and kind of smudged it out so it didn't say happy.
Get a little cake in there.
For those people that don't have these great big weddings, and it still works. It's still good.
Oh, wow. What a great story. So I guess, one of my questions to you then is, what in this particular sermon, right, convicted you, or what might you say even now to a couple that's either considering living together before marriage? Again, in Southern California, wow, so expensive, right? So you just think in some ways it just makes complete sense. What would you say to a couple who's making that decision or have made that decision as to why they shouldn't go that direction?
First thing is we always tell them we did it. So there's no condemnation from us.
no
We know that pressure. We know how easy that decision is. But we've since learned that when you live together without a marriage commitment, there's always a back door. There's nothing really holding you connected to stay. And so you're never truly a couple because you can leave. And so it takes that commitment of life together, working through the good, the bad, the ugly, learning about each other. And you really want to learn about someone when you're truly connected, not when and that's hard because they think they're truly connected many times.
Yeah.
So
Or you hear that we wanted to try it out first
Yeah.
to make sure that we're compatible and whatnot.
Right.
And talk about compatibility, we're opposites, like 180-degree opposites of what we eat, how we think, our love languages, all of that. We are 180s. And so when you talk about compatibility, we're not. But we put those two things together and we make it something that's actually bigger and better than us individually. And so
And that's hard for them to grab if they're really wanting to, try something and all of that. So I don't know. It's a tough one to grab. I do remember this gentleman did talk about from the women's standpoint, that basically the man is getting everything he wants without having to make a commitment. And I remember thinking, well, I don't want to be that person, that just, I guess he put value in me to make me think about myself, that this is worth a real commitment. Yeah. So I do remember he said that. And then basically he told us that Christ is not honored when we're not in holy matrimony.
Right.
And we were just becoming this new faith, and we're like, we don't want to be out of that relationship.
We wanted to be under the umbrella.
Yeah.
And we didn't really understand it. We heard about it, this whole Christian walk and all that. You know about it, but we weren't acting on it.
And he told us we weren't.
Yeah.
So
We went, oh.
oh,
So we decided to act on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you think about those early years and the fact that, as you said, you guys are diametrically opposed in a lot of different areas, you make that marriage commitment. So then everything's smooth sailing at that point, right?
Yeah. Happily ever after.
So tell me about some of those early years and some of the friction that you experienced, and then how you navigated that. Because again, we're addressing couples that are about in their serious dating, or they're engaged, or in their very, very early years of marriage. And I think that there's a lot of benefit in talking to people who have experienced, real friction and real conflict, as everyone has, right? Whether we pretend that we haven't or not, we all have. And so I'm curious what that was for you, and how you managed to navigate that.
just one thing. One thing I want to say is we moved away from Montana, so we moved away from our families. We moved away from everything we knew.
Yeah.
So we were in another state by ourselves, kind of in this new connection of church that had nothing to do with our families.
Yeah.
And so we were at this place where we had a lot of figuring out of things to do.
Yeah.
We were blessed at that time, and through some of the church connections we had, to realize we needed to have mentors, we needed to talk to people, and that this was going to be a journey. It wasn't just going to be easy. So that was part of it.
We still have differences, just like we did in the beginning. We handle them better now. But I was telling somebody the other day is that every day we have disagreements, and that we have to have discussions.
So you two really did leave and cleave, right? You didn't have family in that particular area, and so everything was sort of new to you. So in those early years, Chris, you just mentioned you're 180 degrees in some areas, diametrically opposed in terms of maybe love languages or preferences or the way that you deal with things. So what were some of the things that came up for you in those early years that maybe caused some conflict or tension? And what did you rely on to learn to navigate those in a healthy way?
Well, right off the get-go, it was sex.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And
Expectations.
the
Yeah,
expectations.
sure.
I had expectations. She didn't have a lot of expectations,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I did, and they weren't met. And so there was definitely what would you call
I
it?
was going to say tension. What it was is I felt bad because I knew I wasn't meeting his needs. He felt rejected because I, rebuff quite often.
I heard a lot of no's.
A lot of no's.
Yeah.
And we were just struggling there. And I think we finally, like I said, we were blessed to have gotten told to get some mentorship. We read books finally. I even remember Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And that really, actually, I didn't care for that book because of the way it came across. But that started our minds realizing, oh, we're different.
Yeah.
And so then we kind of, I think, with God and some good mentorship, we realized, oh, men and women are quite different. And so we better start learning or watching. I remember thinking about, you got to watch and kind of listen and kind of ask questions. We weren't great at communication either because we were shy. We didn't know, we didn't want to.
Nobody talks about sex. We just want to it's supposed to just happen naturally.
Right.
and it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that's something that I think at first, as facilitators, pre-marriage facilitators, we were like, oh gosh, how do we talk about this? And then we just see how important it is that, like you said, you just think it's going to come naturally, and it looks like Hollywood. It does not look like Hollywood.
No.
And men are very different and women are very different. And like you said, there's communication. I mean, and it's something that I think, like you said, with counseling, books, I think expectations is really important.
Yeah, we read the book, The 5 Love Languages. That was an eye-opener for both of us, actually.
Yeah.
Is that hers is acts of service.
Okay.
With quality time right behind it. And I learned, oh, that's interesting. And mine is touch. And my backup is touch. My third one is touch. Fourth and fifth is touch.
Just one language. Oh, there's other languages? What are those for?
It's touch. And the touch is literally a hand on my leg, a scratch on my back, fingers through my hair.
Yeah.
That kind of touch is like, wow.
Yeah.
And she doesn't understand that. And the crazy part is her love language is not touch, and yet I touch her all the time, all the time.
Yeah.
I can't walk past her without touching. And my touch is saying, I love you. I've got my hand on her knee right now. To her, it's like annoying. It's like,
But until we read that book, we didn't realize that we spoke different languages. And then all of a sudden, it was aha. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
We don't receive and give love the same way. And because of being Christians, I think we knew we're supposed to give to others, give of ourselves, not be all about ourselves. And so it's like, oh, this isn't going to come natural, but I need to touch his leg, or I need to rub his shoulders on occasion, whether it's what I would normally do. I wouldn't normally do it. That was not my love language. And so that growth, and I guess that would be my encouragement. This wasn't right away. This was gradually getting little cues and hearing from some sermons or reading a book or talking with somebody. And we get these cues that, oh, we maybe should think about this a little more.
Yeah.
too many people give up too soon. Is that this was a long process, and the end result after 43 years is absolutely phenomenal. But early on, it was not phenomenal at that time. We look back now and think, boy, did we grow a lot. Didn't we learn a lot? That was incredible. But when I was in the thick of the moment there, I was the guy that pouted. I would, I'd been rejected, I'd pout. I still remember she had said no one too many times. So I thought, I'll cut her off.
Fine, I'll show her.
3 months, I'm going to show her.
Yes.
It ended up being a holiday for her. It was hell for me.
Right.
So
how do you like it?
Fine. She thought it was great. So anyway, I learned my lesson on that one. That doesn't work. So I needed to understand her love language, and have some quality time and do some acts of service that she appreciates, not just projects that I like. And so that's
very
an
much
ongoing
taking your
thing.
eyes off yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a huge one for us too, because Trevor's is touch, and I am not touch. And I noticed a lot of times men we sit down with, there's this touch also. And I feel like for Trevor, when I had 3 little kids, I'm tired. The last thing I want to do is touch because of this. So I really did not touch him. And like you said, Chris, it's just rubbing his back, hugging him, that it didn't
connection,
always,
right?
that
Fuels me,
connection. And so I do think that that's so important for couples to know that there's non-sexual touch. And being able, expectations of like saying, I just want to hug you. It's not going to lead into something. And yes, the communication.
That was the other thing. I would cringe when he touched me because I assumed he wanted sex. And so then I would almost, even reject the gentle touch until we learned intimacy is about being close. It's not always about sex. And then, so we did talk about it. And so then he'd say, I don't want anything. I just want to hug you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I had to learn some stuff too. Obviously, I had some issues with sex. So and I never actually did counseling, but I did do reading and, learn some more about myself, my body. There was just a lot of good things, but that took time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would say that's even a recent thing for us of really communication, talking. I think that as we've learned things, it's like that's so important. And so we talk to couples, it's like the first conversation might be really uncomfortable, but it's so positive of just keeping that communication line open. And like you said, Chris, I think sometimes it's like, fine, and to be able to talk to the other person is like, this is what I'm feeling, and to kind of be able to communicate that.
Yeah, and talking about feelings and talking in general is not my forte. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
It is her forte,
Right.
and she likes to explain things in detail, etc. I'm just to the point. It's simple, and I've changed a little bit, but I'm still kind of that way.
Yeah.
My love language hasn't changed, neither has hers. But how we work with that has changed through the years.
Awareness.
Yes.
Awareness.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, that's
That's
interesting. So you talked a little bit about how we love. I don't know for our listeners or viewers. Maybe you can give a little bit of a heads up of kind of what was that? What is how we love kind of about? What do you learn about your attachment styles? I think they call them, and maybe what the comfort circle is, and how that's been beneficial in your relationship or those that you've counseled using that material.
It was mind blowing for me.
Yeah.
And Chris came along for the ride with me because, again, that's not
Don't make me do the comfort circle. Don't do it.
I cannot call it that.
Oh, okay. You have to.
Don't call it comfort zone.
Got it. Don't use the terminology. Use the idea, but do not use the phrase. Okay.
But what it was for me is I knew about attachment. It's usually with trauma and other things, but I never thought about it for us, for people who hadn't maybe necessarily had all certain traumas or whatever. But it's about how from very early childhood, when you're even a baby, how you learn to be loved and you develop different ways in which way you react with the world. And depending on how well and how secure you are during that time will affect when you grow up, how you deal in relationships. So if there was not good comfort, if there was not good encouragement, if there was not anyone asking you about why, how are you, I see you're crying. What are you crying about? If nobody ever asked you that, you don't learn to say anything. So why am I going to start doing it when I'm married and an adult if I was never asked it as a child? I mean, that's just a small taste of it, but a lot of people just don't have good. They aren't encouraged to share about what's going on inside of them, and so it stays buried. And what happens is it causes walls between you. So that book just helps you to become aware of those things. And the main thing I love about that book, and I wanted to share it, was in learning to communicate, which again was not our strong suit. It was the listening, how to be a good listener. And I knew I wanted to be a good listener. They took it to such the next level because listening is literally forgetting about yourself and just really cueing into what a person is saying, and then repeating back to them what they say, and then asking them, where did you get this feeling? When did you first have this happen to you? It's really delving into what they're saying. And it's not me saying, well, does that have anything to do with me? When did this start? It's nothing to do with me. It's all to do with this person. And oh my gosh, it's elevated all my communication with people because it's Christ-like. And that's what ultimately they get to. The most secure individual is Christ. Now, we're not going to be like him, but the closer we can get to truly seeing, truly caring, truly listening with empathy, which empathy meaning that I'm really thinking about how this must have felt for the person I'm talking to versus it's all about me, it's all about me. It's the best way to get close to someone. That's something that you do when you're doing a comfort circle anyway, is taking turns doing that kind of listening for each other and, touch and everything. But it's a new level of intimacy.
Yeah. And Chris, for you, again, I don't want to use the phrases from the book. I don't want to trigger you here, but when you think about soul words, right? Looking over this kind of list of feelings and expressing, how you're feeling, choosing something from a list. Was that something that you found like, yeah, I can do this? Or was that challenging for you to figure out, actually put the right word on how you're actually feeling?
It was definitely a challenge. I would go through them and I didn't even want to look at the list. And then I go through the list and I go, well, maybe that one there, the feelings, empathy and feelings, the things that Cheryl was talking about was something I just didn't have. It's getting much better now. We were delving into how you're raised and whatnot. The words "I love you" were never mentioned in our household, ever.
Wow.
Yeah, mine. And I'm sure my parents loved me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they expressed it. I still don't know to this day. And they're in their 90s. They're still kicking. They're great people.
Yeah.
But that was just not something that was ever addressed. And so I didn't have these strong communication, these connections, having these words, talking about feelings. We never talked about feelings. That was just never a subject ever. And so when she would say, "What are you feeling?" It's like, "What do you mean, what am I feeling?"
Yeah.
And that would bring up a discussion, as we would
It
call
was
them.
very, very hard for him to look at that list and pull out something. He lost touch with his feelings. He never had to name them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so why is it even important? Why bother? Why is it important to have to, talk about your feelings or to communicate about these things? I mean, can we not just get along without having to talk deep or to have empathy for one another? Why is it important?
She's not going to be totally intimate with me if I don't give her something to be connected with. And that's where the words are. She wants the words. She wants the feelings. She wants the understanding, not just the touch. She wants to know me, know what's going on inside of me. And it's still difficult when she asks. But I have to dig in and go, okay, tough it out here, Chris.
Right.
There's things that you're feeling here that are either not good or need to be expressed. And every time we've done it, and not we, that I've actually verbalized something, she is so appreciative and so thankful that I actually said something. And it's like, oh, this is interesting.
It brings that connection, soul words. It brings that intimate connection. And we were talking about this earlier, but, marriage is God's plan, and he meant for us to be, we're the closest with each other that we are to anyone on this earth. And how to get that close, to have that much intimacy is available if we will just take some tools and take some risk and some vulnerability to get there. And again, we took the How We Love class. We led the How We Love class. I've read the How We Love book. It took time to kind of develop these skills, but that's where you get closer to any person on earth.
Yeah.
You're doing that. And that's what God meant it to be. It was meant to be this beautiful, close, this person sees me, I see them relationship that we don't have with anybody else.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to generalize a little bit in order to make a point. So it's not always the case, but it's typical that men are a little less in touch with their feelings and maybe a little less verbally expressive in terms of being able to actually say what they're feeling. And it seems that women are a little more in touch with their feelings, able to maybe verbalize what they're feeling and certainly want to do that more often, right? Which means guys have to listen to what's actually going on there. And so what do you advise to, a young man typically for which she's saying, I want to know what's really going on in his heart. I mean, he just kind of tells me what he did. Fine. And this is what happened at work. And he's a little less, it's just like, yeah, fine. I don't know. I just want to eat or watch a game or whatever. But I really want to get to know him. We see that a little bit as a tension, even for couples that feel like we're deeply in love and we're ready to get married and go the distance. What might you advise to couples and to men specifically, maybe in a situation like that?
Fine.
That's all you'd say?
Yeah. Here again, I have to appreciate her and where she's coming from, and I have to get outside of myself and connect with her. And I don't do it so I can score points,
Right.
which is a bogus thing,
Yeah.
or get what I want from her. I have to really want to share with her so that we do connect. And this took not just years, decades.
But just a short note. I mean, it's turning off the phones. It's turning off, not all the time, but on occasion.
Yes.
Making that effort. One of our things is keep on dating. We've made that a big priority in our life, is to keep on dating, as often as we can. And our kids know Mom and Dad are on a date. This is our time. And so be purposeful and intentional. When you take the time to go on a date, put the phone away.
How many times have you gone to a restaurant? And we do this a lot. We'll go out, and couples throughout the restaurant, we count them. It's like 90% are on their phone reading something. Then they'll eat something and they're back on their phone. We were on the light rail going down to the airport. Everybody on the light rail was on their phones. Cheryl and I were the only ones not
Sitting
on our
and
phones.
talking,
We were talking
and-
and we'd try to engage somebody there, but and the phones have just consumed people. And definitely between a couple at home as well as out and about is I have to turn my phone over and turn the ringer off sometimes in the messenger and focus on Cheryl. Is that she wants to talk about something? We turn if we're watching a TV and she's got a point, we mute the TV or turn it off.
That's a little tip too. I've learned with Chris especially, and I think it's fairly common with guys, I have to say, hon, there's something I was just thinking about, I want to run by you. Let me know when we can talk. Because many times he's in the zone, either watching the show, and so we've learned that's kind of our cue. I can't expect him to want to stop right then. But he knows within a certain amount of time, and it's usually within the time we're still sitting there, and he'll say, okay, he'll shut the computer or he'll do whatever to say, okay, what was it you wanted to talk about? So he honors me that way. Yeah. So
and she honors me by giving me a heads up and saying, there's something I want to talk about, as opposed to just going at me with whatever that heads up. Oh, good. I get to change gears. Men, generally speaking, have a one-track mind, and that's not just sexual. It's I'm in football, or I'm on the computer, I'm doing my email. I'm on my one track, and I need to get off that track, and she allows me that time to get off the track and get on her track.
And even he's asked me to kind of preface what the topic is, because then that kind of helps his brain get into the right room with me too. It's just starting to bust into a story that means nothing to him.
Yes.
So sometimes I'm not always good at it, but I do try to say this has to do with one of the kids or whatever it is, and then I'll say what I'm thinking about, and then we'll have a discussion. And again, that means turning off the computer, taking that pause to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I often tell women, or actually, after sex is a really good time to have those conversations, because the feelings are clear for a while.
Right.
Yes.
And then, and we have the best talks because
that connection, you've had that connection.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yep. And a little bit of a
it's
reboot.
physical.
Right.
Yep. And so once that physical connection's there then we're, okay, let's talk.
And then I meet her needs and talk with her.
Right.
Yeah. It is interesting for men and women. Women want the emotion and then intimacy, and men want intimacy and then they have the being able to talk. So it really is. And once again, you think, that's how we're wired. And to know that helps so much.
Just to know that and be aware of it.
And it's actually a good thing. I mean, those opposites attract. Bringing two opposing viewpoints or how we operate and bringing them into one makes a much more unique entity as opposed to just me.
Just me.
Right.
Yeah, married to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I think it's interesting too because in many ways trying to figure out those dance steps, right? As you said, you're still learning things about one another.
yeah.
You're still trying to navigate those things and connect those puzzle pieces together in some way. And so, the Bible talks about oneness, right? It's like it's never done, right? You continue to draw closer and closer and closer together as one, right? And that doesn't mean that you're losing yourself. You're uniquely yourself and she's uniquely herself, but the two of you coming together creates this whole new thing. And then when you've got the Lord in the middle of it, right? It's really is something magical. We just get so passionate and so excited about marriage, God's idea when we sit down to share with couples and talk about what this lifelong adventure is going to be. And like you say, it's never done. It's not simple, but man, is it beautiful the way in which God is shaping each of you as you get deeper and deeper into oneness.
I wish we could think of a word picture of something that gets better and better the more you involve in it or work at it. It's just hard to explain, but it just does. And it never gets old. It's like
It's because we're always working at it. We still have those disagreements, and we may have disagreements during the day. Yeah, I drive one way, she likes a different way. I'm going to park over here, she wants me to park over there. It's these disagreements all the time. Yet it's how we navigate those, and they're really obviously they're not huge disagreements about something. They're just these little idiosyncrasies that we work through. And as opposed to me shutting down or her getting frustrated, we just recognize we see things differently and we get there.
Right.
And it still works. And it's so good. The marriage there's so many positives to the marriage that those little discrepancies that we have going on are really so minuscule. As long as you don't blow them out of proportion. And too often we see early on in marriages, they blow those things out of proportion.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're saying that perhaps it's just a preference about how something's done, or a preference about what you like, and they have a different preference, right? But you turn that into something bigger than it needs to be, and then you start to look at the other person as the enemy, as opposed to realizing we're wearing the same jerseys, we're on the same team, we may even want the same thing at the end of the day, but we're going to take this issue and we're going to blow it up and not have the patience to walk through it and sort of figure it out, but to let us divide, right?
Yep.
I just wanted to talk about SYMBIS, which is saving your marriage before it starts, with pre-marriage. And that's how you guys were our first mentors. I mean, you were the ones that we kind of started and going, how do we do this? And you were the ones that kind of led us. So I just kind of wanted to talk to you about SYMBIS and your experience within SYMBIS.
Yeah, that was the first pre-marriage program we were exposed to. We went to church and we got this call that we should serve. And I'd served for years, but with Chris working, it wasn't easy. So we said, I'd really like us to serve together. That's a cue, by the way. That's turning towards each other and doing something together. And so our church said, we went to this table and we said, we want to serve together. We thought marriage, maybe, can we help with, do you have marriage counseling, whatever? And they said, well, we do, but we really need help in pre-marriage. And that was, they used the SYMBIS program. So save your marriage before it starts. So we said, okay. And so we had to go through a training. So Les and Leslie Parrott are actually from the Pacific Northwest. Our son went to SPU where they're family teachers. But so we went through the training, and it's really, what I love about it is that it uses this assessment. I think you mentioned you guys are still using it. And so it kind of does science with relationship topics. And so the couples answer this whole big group of questions on this assessment separately. And then the computer takes, and it's, how they do in that you answer a lot of questions in different ways. And then the computer puts that together with how those answers match up with your partner who did their questions. And it identifies great areas, and it identifies areas where there's probably something you better discuss. or even red flag areas. And so that could be pornography, that could be a lot of different things. And so with that assessment, we can sit down and talk with someone. I know you guys have done it, but the assessment becomes the information. It's not us against them or them against each other. It's the assessment that's put this information down. It's not 100%, but the eyes light up because they see.
We took it.
And we went, oh my gosh. Of course, it depends on how honest people are when they do the assessment. But so I love that. So then with that tool of the assessment, then we would sit, and you guys have done it, where you sit down with a couple and you run through communication, conflict resolution, in-laws, all the topics, sex, everything, and just say, this is an area you're working in, but this is an area you need to grow in, because it's showing that there could be an issue with this if you guys don't, and then I think they even give you quite a few tools on what they can maybe use to help grow in that area. So it points out things I think a lot of couples would never talk about. And all of a sudden, it's all they have all these great things to talk about, and at least they talk about them when they're with us. Hopefully, it continues throughout there. But that's what I'm talking about. Those are those little ahas that maybe at the time they're going through it, or when we first did it, or we're first married, we went, oh, I guess that makes sense, or I guess that relates to me. But God uses our brains to kind of mull over these things. And all of a sudden you read something in the Word, or you hear something from a friend, and you go, oh, that has to do with that topic about communication. It's just fascinating how it works when you put the effort in. We like the program.
It's interesting to me when we talk to couples usually going through SYMBIS, because I feel in many ways we're pointing out potholes in the road, some of which they may have, driven into, and some of which are so far out for them, like make sure to have a date night because, once you have kids and once career becomes important and all these things, and some of those things I feel like, man, we're giving you gold here, but they don't realize it because they've not struggled through it, right? And so what do you think is that balance, and how can you make some of these concepts actually stick for people, even though they haven't maybe experienced the pain that they might avoid if they put some of these things into place?
Well, I think sometimes we need to go through the pain.
Yeah.
That we need to fail a couple times. What the challenge is if we fail, but we don't have a marriage commitment, then we blow it up and we go our separate ways. If we have our commitment and we fail at something, I have expectations and they're not being met, and we struggle through that struggle has actually made us stronger. Everything about when I look back now at the beginning is that all those struggles, all the things that we went through, the discussions, the me cutting her off, all those kind of stuff, were all part of a plan that makes our relationship even better today. I mean, I'm literally more excited to be married today than I was 43 years ago. We had a sex talk the other night of things are changing.
Yeah.
When we're on the short side of 70 here, and things change. And so we're still having these conversations and working through different areas of our marriage. But it's, like I said, it's so worth going through some of those painful things early on, but with that commitment till death do us part, is that we're going to stay together and we're going to either pray about this or we're going to get some counseling. I wasn't a big fan of counseling. Just that whole idea I didn't resonate with until we had mentors, which were counselors, kind of giving us advice and direction, similar to what you two are doing right now, is you're giving tools to people. We will connect with a few people, but not everybody. And it's just the few people that we will connect with, they'll go, oh, I get that. Oh, we've been through that. All right, we're willing to fight through this scenario. I can relate with that.
I don't, and with those young pre-marrieds, we just kept telling them, just keep talking to people, keep reading books, call us. You're in a wonderful place right now, but some of these tools you want to just start from the very beginning. So I don't know how you impress upon that other than say that and pray that something falls into their brains that when something goes wrong, they go, I think we talked about that with those two people, you know?
Right.
So I don't, yeah. What have you guys come up with?
Well, I mean, for one, I guess when we wrap up Symbis, I really try to sort of, force them in a way to make note of the goal or the thing that they learned. Because, I might sit here, even with you in the course of an hour, I'm like, man, that was amazing. There was such wisdom there. I'm so excited about it, And an hour later, I can hardly remember, right? And it just kind of continues to dim over time. And so by the time I come back and, review the footage, for example, I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that. This was so great, And so I like to have people at least try to identify something that they learn and maybe a goal that they want to work on. So they at least walk away with something that they're committed, because it's one thing for us to just speak to them. It's something else for them to go, ooh, that light bulb went off and I need to make a change,
Yeah, so we wanted to learn about re-engage. So that's something it seems like you guys have been a part of.
Yeah, it's a new program to us, but at the last church we were in Northern California had it. And it's gosh, I wish I had the book with me. It's really a great program for already married couples. And they really kind of sell it for people who are in marriages that are struggling. But we wanted to do it because it was a marriage class. And I don't guess we didn't feel like we were going there because we were on that, having a real struggle, but we wanted to go. I think it's meant for every marriage, but the idea of re-engage in every weekly testimony was about people either through disconnection in their marriage somewhere, whether it was an affair, a divorce, there was some pretty serious issues, abuse in their past, that had caused a problem in their current marriage. And so this whole program was how to face that and then invite God's way over the way the world teaches us to deal with those issues and to re-engage as couples. And they take you through, a lot. I'm trying to think of every week what the lessons were, but it's kind of like Symbis. Other than every week you'd go home and have homework and you'd have a topic that they brought up, and then we'd go home and we'd talk about it and we'd write our answers and we'd go back and we'd share it with our group. So there was a certain amount of accountability because you had other couples. What I loved is we were with couples our age, we were with younger couples. It wasn't all the same age, and so we learned things from them, they learned from us, but you had to be fairly, pretty honest to put it out there and say, this is what we're working on and we're not doing very well. And
one of the topics was having guardrails and having guardrails in your life. And one of the guardrails that really hit with me, we had this years ago as well, is that the temptations, man's temptations out there in life are massive. They're always going at you. And one of the temptations, especially for men who are visual, and down in Huntington Beach, when we moved down there, you go to the beach and, oh my goodness, you see more skin down on the beach than I have ever seen in my entire life. And Cheryl and I would be walking the beach, and listen, I couldn't avoid it. I would see it, but the guardrail is I wouldn't take the second look. Now, believe me, in my mind, I'm like, are those real? And I wanted to look again to see, but my guardrail said, you don't look again. In fact, I look away. And so that's something that I worked on all the time. And to this day, I'm still visual. I still go down to the beach and I'll see something. I turn away. And it's just something, because that's something that I want to honor my wife with, is that I see her. I don't see everything else. There's no comparison. And so that's something that I have learned on the guardrails.
we would have honest talks like that, and then someone would suggest, or we would say, how would, what's a more Christ-like way of dealing with things, because that's who we ultimately want to glorify and who we want to be like. Anyway, they were great topics. We learned a lot of stuff about ourselves, even at this stage of the game. And I really like that program. In fact, I found there's 2 churches here that are starting it in the fall.
And I know, you talked a little bit about, going through things that are difficult because you have that underpinning of that marriage commitment and you have the Lord in your life, that can draw you closer together. But it's not always easy. And I know, Chris, you had some health complications. If you're at liberty and willing to share a little bit about that, I'd love to hear how you navigated through that season and sort of how God brought you to where you are today and how that impacted your relationship.
Yeah, I'm willing to talk about it now. I wasn't for a while. It was a throat cancer, and it was back in 2023, and got diagnosed, and they pretty much rushed me through to start the process, the chemo and the radiation and whatnot. And really, I didn't have any concerns at the time. They said I had this, and I went, okay, how do we deal with it? And I had faith. So I didn't have this great concern. After the procedure started, is things went downhill pretty quickly. That I had to have a feeding tube. Cheryl would feed me through a tube.
Wow.
And that's kind of humbling. And we went through that, and I got to a point where I couldn't communicate. I couldn't talk because it had affected my throat and everything. So I couldn't talk, I couldn't eat. And I still thought I was 38 years old and I could do everything, but I couldn't do anything. And then on top of all that, when I thought I was going to be cured, I got sepsis, which I ended up, I was on the toilet at 3 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't get off the toilet. We had to call the medics in, and they drove me away and put me in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And while in the hospital, I could do nothing. And the most humbling thing is, I can talk about it now, is she had to help me pee into a plastic bottle. Yeah. And it doesn't get any more real, excuse me, than that. Go ahead.
So it brings you really close. I mean, thank heavens for all those years of loving each other, for better or for worse, for, sickness and in health.
Yeah.
That was, I thought, but I think it was humbling for him. He's a virile man. He's a strong man. That was very hard for him to be cared for that way. Yeah. And so but he did, because we had to. It was just us again. Yeah. But for me personally, I was telling him earlier, because of my faith, I knew to not isolate. I had 3 friends, 2 friends and a daughter who I called every single week. I called a church and said, I need to get on your prayer list. And she said, okay, what's up? And I said, well, my husband has throat cancer and he's going into treatment. She said, my husband had throat cancer 2 years ago. She says, I'm going to text you every single day. She texted scripture. She texted me pictures. She said, you're probably about ready to go through this part of the procedure. Expect this. He's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. So she was like this lifeline. You guys, I've never met this woman. I tried to find her, never met her. Wow. She texted me every single day for the 6 weeks of his procedure and program. So God provided that, because I didn't isolate and we didn't hide. My neighbors, we got to know our neighbors in that time. We continued as much as we could with church, and because we knew we couldn't hide, we had to stay involved, and that I think got us through too. And
from the diagnosis all the way through, all 3 of our kids got married during that time. And I could see my first one, my son's, the middle one, I kind of made it through, and my daughter got married, and we were able to get out of the hospital in time to get to the wedding. Barely. But I couldn't speak. And so I had my boys read what I wanted to say, but that whole thing, I was kind of exposed, I guess, on my weakness. I looked like a Holocaust victim. It was not a pretty look. And 43 years ago, our relationship going through some little tough times, so that when we got to the really tough times down the road, we knew how to handle it. And she handled it better than I did. But we made it through. And now we're on the other side of that. And maybe we can help somebody. Yeah. And so you're cancer free right now? Yep. Yeah.
Praise
And
God.
feel great. Lost a lot of my taste. I don't have a lot of saliva. So, but it's kind of the new norm. And, if you're going to get cancer, this was the great one to get, And so God provided through this in ways that were literally miraculous. Where we ended up living in Northern California, where the doctor was that I ended up seeing, and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and where I was working, how they handled me at that time and worked through
amazing.
it, everything about it, where we were living.
The thing we didn't do is that cancer doesn't define Chris. That stage in our life doesn't define our marriage. It was a season, and we're so thankful for the tools we had in place, the connection we had in place, but God defines us. And so we just trusted a lot. And He provided just in ways you can't imagine.
Yeah. Well, it's so neat. I mean, when you think about, you're just saying it's the bricks that were laid. It's this foundation that was laid when you first got married, right? It's the foundation that was laid when you first were set free by the Lord and came to know Him, right? And you're laying those bricks down, and He's building something beautiful, right? And it's hard along the way, but it's just so amazing to see how your story unfolded, and to know that you're well now, right? I mean, not out of the woods in terms of the taste buds and some of the other things, but
Burgers don't taste as good as they used to.
Yeah,
That's a tough one.
that's right. Yeah.
In-N-Out burger.
But really amazing to just see that, like, these are the tests that we're going to go through, the tests of our faith, the tests of our relationship, the tests of our community and our friendships, and our real, just seeing it laid bare, like you say, all humility out the window, right? And but just to see that kind of love, it's a beautiful thing. The love from the Lord to provide to you these people you've never met, right? Who can love on you and encourage you in the midst of it, in the way that you can see God's hand carrying you through as well.
So clear.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, and Cheryl, you are an amazing prayer warrior. An amazing prayer warrior. And so I just want to, I know that you have different techniques and things that you use. Can you kind of talk about prayer?
Yeah, oh, that's so nice. I guess I don't think of myself as this amazing prayer warrior, but I do it every day. I do it all the time. And I've done it with you. I've learned different prayer things with you. Right now, my big thing is journaling. So, and the journal has two parts. The first part is you read a scripture and you talk to God about that scripture. You listen. Don't, listen more than talk. I write the scripture out. I say, all right, what am I to get from this, Lord? What are you telling me? What are you talking to me about? I tend to doodle. I draw, praise, glory, peace. I doodle as I'm in that time of just the scripture. And then once I'm done with that time, then the bottom section it has different sections to pray for people. So you can pray for your immediate family, for your extended family, for your friends, for people who are sick, for different church things, different anything that's on your mind. So that's I do that. I really am sad when I miss that in the morning. So it's pretty much every morning taking that time.
Journaling do I do?
That's something we do talk to our new marrieds about, because our spiritual walks are totally, I mean, it's just like the rest of our lives. We're totally different.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I quit assuming he had to do it like me,
Right.
that was a big aha, is that God reaches him his way, and I talk to him and learn from God my way. Then
But we both learn.
Yeah.
amen.
Towards the end of the SYMBIS assessment, it sort of outlines how she feels closest to God and how he feels closest to
That's
God.
where
And
it
so,
started.
being in prayer and scripture, the drawing that you do. So for Chris, where do you find your closeness and your connection with the Lord? What does it look like for you?
Every day, I especially nowadays, but every day I wake up and I am so thankful, number one, to be alive, but to see the beauty in my relationship, in our friendships. We've got friendships that we've had for over 50 years now that we still get together. The beauty outside. When we were down in Huntington Beach,
Love that place.
we're Montana people, so we're kind of rednecks. But we so enjoyed Huntington Beach. I mean, that was kind of a shocker. And that whole thing was for me, a spiritual journey. That the church that we attended, the people that we met, i.e., you two, was my spiritual walk, and spending time. I still remember, Trevor, you and I just going to lunch at that one. I can't remember. I got a pizza thing
Oh
there.
yeah, that's right.
And see, it meant probably not too much to you. It meant a tremendous amount to me that you cared enough to want to sit down with me. And I think I was going through some of my crap.
Oh,
and
I was
whatnot.
going to say we could probably have a whole new podcast about work and career and being derailed and work
That
responsibilities.
doesn't define us either.
Yes, exactly right.
So-
I love that. That's not our identity, right? These things that we go through, they're seasons and they're things that we go through. But we're defined, and our identity is who we are in Christ, right?
Yep.
And can I just add his faith? Because with the financial stuff, we went through financial stuff, we've gone through, is he'd always say, Cheryl, remember how God has met us. And he'll remember something that happened in our past where we got through it. And then I'll go, oh, you're right. Why am I worrying? He took care of us before. He'll do it again. It'll be his way and timing. We don't always know what it'll look like, but we know he's got us.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. There is something so beautiful about that, right? Of that sort of rear view mirror, right? Or those stones that were stacked so that people would say, what's this all about? Like, this is what God did, right? And so that constant reminder to ourselves, because we're so quick to forget, right? When that windshield gets clouded with the current big thing,
Yes.
it's kind of difficult to look in the rearview mirror and go, wow, look at the faithfulness of God. Look at how he carried us through.
He's really good at that, at remembering that and bringing it so that we remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. That's beautiful. Well, as we close out, I'm just curious to know, when you think about the couples that you've been able to meet with over the years, the things that you've learned over the years, what are the one or two things that you just really, really either just meant so much to you when you learned them and took them to heart, or that you really want to just send forward and make sure that people, grab hold of these ideas and concepts?
Men and women are different. People are different. And the differences is what makes each other beautiful. It's not something to judge, to have expectation about changing, any of that. It's once you get your eyes to be on the other person and truly see the beauty in them, how God created them, who they are, and appreciate it versus, my problem is judging. So trying to judge or control. The sooner, he kind of asked me to just see him for who he is. When I finally said, oh my gosh, I haven't been doing that. And I did. It made it so much easier to just love him versus who I thought he should be or who I thought I was going to marry or whatever. And that made a big difference.
What was the question again? I was infatuated.
As
That
well
was
you should be.
beautiful. Yes.
What would you give to couples who are on the precipice of marriage or in those early years as a sort of a takeaway?
Enjoying the early years, sometimes the infatuation, the newness, the thrill of being in a relationship is awesome. And like Cheryl said, that we continue to date today, is make sure that you continue to date, that don't let yourself go. Don't say, okay, now I've landed my woman, I've landed my guy, now I don't have to work at it anymore. And it's something that we continue to work at. I still want to be attractive for her. I still want to be someone that she desires, that wants to be around, that she wants to introduce me to her friends, that she will say good things about me in public. And so I have to work at that. I can't just expect it. It's something that's ongoing. So start early on of dating and being desirable to your mate for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's
Well, we
beautiful.
look up to you guys so much. Thank you for spending this time. And I know it's going to bless so many couples.
Thanks for even thinking of us. We
Yeah.
appreciate it very much.
Oh, you guys have such wisdom to share and such joy. I
Yeah.
know, I know that joy is born from hardship in a way, because it teaches you to have that heart of gratitude for life, for beauty, for one another, and for the Lord, and it just shines through you guys.
does.
We knew you for such a small time, but you make such a big impact,
It's just lights.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We appreciate that. Can I share one quick story?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So we're playing pickleball. We play pickleball now. That's our new thing.
Okay.
I played, he joined me. Anyway, we were with a couple, we were playing yesterday, and this one gal said, after we were done playing, she said, it was so fun to play with you guys as a couple. She said, I've played with so many couples, and she said, I don't like playing with couples because they're on each other all the time. They're correcting each other, and she said, you guys didn't do any of that. You guys were fun.
Yes.
So that's our, that's what we do.
I do feel like for all of us, we were just kids together and laughter and fun. So I definitely see that with you both.
Yeah.
Good.
That's
We
right.
love you.
We love you guys. Thanks so much
Thank
for
you
joining
so
us.
much.
And we hope that you will all join us again for another episode of Tools for Marriage.
Thanks for listening.
Please subscribe or follow to get notified with each new episode of the Tools for Marriage podcast.
We're cheering you on.